Hey guys, tonight we're heading into a sleepy Texas town where the wind smells like crude oil and chalk dust, and every child's backpack is stuffed with textbooks and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. It's 1937, and you're standing outside a gleaming new school built with oil money solid, proud, and, tragically, doomed. Inside, kids tap pencils on desks and pass folded notes. Outside, pickup trucks crunch over gravel. Everything looks normal. That's the problem, because just under your shoes beneath the polished tile and buzzing light fixtures, a silent menace is gathering strength. No ticking clock, no flashing red light, just a pocket of death waiting to be sparked. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up the walkway to the New London School. Your shoes, leaving little clouds of East Texas dust in their wake. The building is beautiful. It sits like a crown jewel among rows of modest homes and oil derricks. There's a soft hum in the air. Maybe it's the low vibration of distant drills, or just the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. Inside, linoleum floors shine, and children murmur in their seats. Teachers tap chalk against blackboards and write cursive letters that curl like ribbon. You glance at a wall clock still early. The classrooms smell faintly of wax, ink, and something else you can't quite name. Not unpleasant, but off. A sweet, gassy smell you ignore, like everyone else. It's been around for weeks. The janitor said it was nothing. New London, Texas, in the 1930s is what you'd call an oil boom town. Wealth surged in practically overnight, like someone cracked open the earth and filled the town's pockets with black gold. People built homes, churches, and a school the size of a college campus. You watch oil workers in denim and hard hats eat sandwiches in their trucks while kids file into the school's auditorium. There's something uniquely American about it all: hope, growth, a splash of arrogance. You pause near the auditorium and run your fingers along the polished wood trim. Everything here looks expensive. Marble floors, brick walls. Even the light fixtures have a kind of Art Deco flair, like the school is trying to prove something to the world, maybe, or to itself, that it's more than just oil rigs and red dirt. One student, 12 years old, maybe adjusts her bow and skips down the hallway, humming a tune from the radio. Her name is Lou, and she has no idea she'll be a name in newspaper headlines tomorrow. She just wants recess. Historians still argue whether it was the opulence of the school or the rush to complete it cheaply that opened the door to what's coming. Either way, there's a dangerous contrast unfolding right under your nose, the desire to show off clashing with the need to cut corners. And corners were definitely cut. You pass by the boiler room. It's quiet. That smell again slightly sweet, almost metallic, natural gas, but you wouldn't know it. In 1937, they don't add odorants to the gas, so no one really notices. Or they do, but they don't know what it means. It's like sniffing danger and calling it strange perfume. Here's the quirky bit, because every town has its oddball history. Before this school was built, classes were held in temporary buildings, shacks. Really, the principal at the time hated the chaos, So when the oil money poured in, he vowed to build the best school in the country. And honestly, he might have done it. It had a football stadium, a cafeteria with actual tiled floors, and a state-of-the-art science lab. You duck into a classroom now, room 108. A teacher is diagramming a sentence on the board. The boy ran to the store. Her voice lilts as she reads aloud, and the students repeat after her, half bored, half hypnotized. You spot a boy in the back flipping a coin on his desk. It lands with a soft clink. Heads. You glance at the ceiling. You wouldn't know it, but that's where the gas is pooling between the roof and the ceiling tiles. An invisible lake of death forming drop by drop, hour by hour. And no one, not the janitor, not the principal, not even the city inspector, knows it's there. It's one of those days when nothing feels particularly special, which is what makes it so chilling. There's no thunderstorm, no stranger loitering near the playground, just sunshine, blue skies, and a bubbling death trap below. You walk past the library books lined up like soldiers, quiet and unaware. A girl giggles softly as she slips a note into the pocket of a boy's jacket hanging by the door. He'll never read it. She'll never ask if he did. The bell rings. Chairs scrape. Kids move between classes, brushing against you like ghosts in reverse. You see a teacher open a window more to feel the breeze than anything. But the breeze doesn't reach the gas. And then, in one final eerie moment, the intercom buzzes softly. A janitor's voice crackles through all staff. Remember the faculty meeting after class today? You step outside, into the sun, and turn to look at the school again. Proud, tall, confident. You almost feel angry at it, because you know what's coming. And they don't. They're still laughing in the halls. The math teacher is still scribbling equations. The band is still practicing Sousa marches in the gym. But that smell, that faint, syrupy smell lingers. And soon, it will ignite. The town of New London doesn't look like a death trap. You drive through in your dusty Ford pickup, and all you see are rows of oil derricks ticking like giant steel metronomes. This isn't just a school district, it's a boom town, fed by the riches of black gold, brimming with confidence that nothing, absolutely nothing, could go wrong here. You park near the corner store where kids buy penny candy and teachers grab smokes on their breaks. Everything feels secure. And why shouldn't it? The town is rich, filthy rich. They struck oil in 1930, and within months, the place exploded with money, machinery, and more swagger than it knew what to do with. You wipe your brow and glance toward the horizon where derricks pump day and night like hungry insects. The school itself, the one you just walked through, is a physical testament to that wealth. Taxpayers voted for the best, and they got it. Brick masonry instead of wood, a massive gymnasium, even a chemistry lab complete with Bunsen burners and test tubes, because why not? Science is the future, after all. But here's the first crack in the perfect facade pride. The New London School was designed not just to teach children, but to show off. There's something strangely defiant about the place, like it's trying to prove a point. We're not some hick town. We're modern. We're better. That pride trickled into everything, including, unfortunately, the decision-making. You're inside the superintendent's office now. His name was W.C. Shaw. He was known for being bold, smart, and a little too confident. Under his watch, the school board decided to save money by installing its own natural gas line from a nearby oil field. Why pay the gas company when you can siphon off what they called residual gas, a waste product that just vented into the air anyway? It was legal, it was common, and it was incredibly stupid. Historians still argue whether the school board fully understood the risks of tapping into an untreated gas source. Some say they were misled, others say they didn't care, focused more on budgets than safety. What's certain is that residual gas wasn't odorized. No rotten egg smell, no warnings, just silence. You walk back down those gleaming hallways and peer into classrooms, each one with shiny desks, neatly dressed kids, and polished floors. You can almost hear a whisper echo through the school. We deserve this. And maybe they did, but you know that prosperity often breeds shortcuts. The school was built fast. Decisions were made faster. And in their rush to ride the oil boom, something got left behind caution. There's a tiny moment from the town's history that never made the headlines, but still clings to the edge of the story like a burr on a sock. A year before the explosion, a plumber mentioned smelling gas in the crawl space beneath the school. He mentioned it once to someone at a diner. No one wrote it down. You slide into a classroom seat, now hard wooden desk, initials carved into the corner, a little ink well at the top. You feel the vibrations more, then hear them distant rumblings from the oil fields, machines punching through rock just miles away. It feels normal now, like a heartbeat, but underneath, something else brews. That unauthorized gas line, it's leaking. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. A whisper of methane creeping into the building's underbelly, pooling like water in a clogged sink. And you can't smell it. No one can. Quirky fact time: New London was one of the few districts at the time to issue typewriters to its high schoolers. They practiced shorthand, preparing for business careers that would never come. You can almost hear the clackety-clack of the keys echoing through the hallways. Outside, a man in coveralls smokes a cigarette while watching his son walk into the building. He has no idea that the building is a balloon, and somewhere inside, the match is almost ready. In the school's lower level, a worker, probably in his 20s, wires a piece of equipment near the shop classroom. He's not an electrician by trade, just someone handy with tools. He's been asked to install a motor for a new wood lathe. As he flips the switch, a faint blue spark arcs from the wiring. It fizzes and vanishes in a blink, but it's enough. You pause here, breathe, because that's all it takes. One spark, one moment of electrical contact in a room filled with invisible gas. This section isn't where it explodes, no, not yet. But now, the ingredients are all in the pot. The gas is pooled. The pride is built into the bricks. The shortcut has been taken. You just haven't seen the final strike yet. And that's what makes it so haunting. No alarms, no flashing lights, just regular people doing regular things, kids solving arithmetic, teachers writing cursive on the board, the janitor mopping the floor with a quiet hum, and beneath them a tomb waiting for ignition. You push open the heavy metal door of the science lab, and the scent hits you first: a cocktail of chalk dust, candle wax, and something a bit too sweet. Something wrong. It lingers in your nose like burnt sugar, stubborn and chemical. Students file in behind you, laughing, complaining about pop quizzes and wishing it were already Friday. You glance over your shoulder. No one mentions the smell. They've all gotten used to it. You sit down at a lab table, worn soft at the edges. The black surface is etched with faded graffiti. Go Bulldogs, a few doodled hearts. A very crude stick figure. Bunsen burners line the counter like little soldiers, still cool to the touch for now. The teacher calls roll. One girl answers in a voice too quiet to hear. Her friend elbows her playfully. The room feels alive. You tap your fingers on the tabletop. It vibrates just a bit, barely enough to notice. A low, mechanical hum that never fully disappears in New London. Somewhere outside, another derrick is gnawing at the Earth's crust. You look out the window and see smoke rising lazily from one of them. The town's heartbeat. But it's also the town's blind spot, because what they've done, what the school board did, is tap directly into that monster's breath. That residual gas line, snaking underground like a sleeping dragon, seeps into the underbelly of the school. And here, in this very classroom, it's collecting in spaces no one bothers to check above ceiling tiles. Behind cabinets, under floorboards, the teacher turns on the light switch with a soft click. Nothing explodes. Not yet. Instead, she begins a lecture on static electricity, ironic, considering what's coming. You watch as she rubs a balloon on her wool sweater, then sticks it to the blackboard. The class laughs. It's a good laugh. Clean and uncomplicated. You want to stop time right here. Historians still argue whether the staff had a chance to detect the gas before the explosion. Some reports say the janitor mentioned the smell, even filed a vague maintenance request. Others say there were rumors among the students, a joke about how the building smelled like bad fruit. But nothing official ever came of it. It was 1937. People ignored weird smells the way they ignored creaky floorboards and leaking pipes. You wander the hallway now, tracing the bricks with your fingertips. They're cool, a little gritty, probably from limestone. You pass the home economics room. A girl is sewing a hem, her thread catching just right. Across the hall, the principal is walking with a clipboard in hand. He's not worried. He's thinking about the end-of-day meeting, maybe about the budget, maybe about dinner. There's an emotional moment hiding here so small you might miss it. You peek into a classroom where a boy is nervously clutching a handmade Valentine's Day card. It's not Valentine's Day, of course. He just hasn't had the nerve to give it to her yet. He's waiting for the right moment. He never gets it. The smell is stronger in some places. You follow it now, past the boiler room, down a narrow stairwell where the walls are lined with maintenance signs and forgotten gym equipment. There's a low pipe here, brass, sweating slightly, hissing faintly. Is it leaking? Maybe, maybe not. There's no sound that screams danger, just an ambiance of negligence. The fringe fact in all this, the school had recently won awards for its architecture. There was a feature in a regional newsletter praising its advanced design and futuristic engineering. That makes you laugh, a little too bitterly, because no one thought to ask if the future had a sense of smell. At one point, a substitute teacher mentions the odd scent to another in passing. Smells like gas, she says with a nervous chuckle. Maybe it's the chemistry lab. They shrug. It's Friday. Everyone wants to go home. The students are restless, and the teachers are tired. By now, you're in the library again. The clock ticks past 3 p.m. Outside, the wind shifts just slightly, rattling the flagpole. A group of students is rehearsing a school play in the auditorium. The lines echo through the walls. To be or not to be. You feel it building, not the explosion, the tension, the invisible truth thickening in the air like fog. You breathe it in, you walk through it, you brush your shoulder against it, and never know it's there. There's a sensory detail that sticks with you. In one hallway, someone has just mopped the floor with pine-scented cleaner. The sharp smell mingles with the gas, creating a confusing blend. Your brain doesn't register danger. It just thinks janitor's been here. And that's the horror of it. You're a kid, or a teacher, or a passerby. You're not trained to smell gas. You don't even know that natural gas should smell. You have no idea that you're walking through something flammable, that you're basically breathing a fuse. Somewhere, someone turns on a fan. It hums, unaware, in a classroom. A student sneezes. Another scribbles a note and flicks it under a desk. Life is still happening, fully, deeply, even beautifully. And then, somewhere out of view, a spark finds air that should have been safe, but not yet. There's just one more detail left to slide into place. One more switch to flip. The moment it happens, you're not even in the room. You're down the hall, maybe getting a drink from the water fountain. When the floor shivers, it's subtle at first, like a train is rumbling far beneath your feet. Then comes the sound, an unholy crack, like the earth itself snapping in two. You don't have time to process it. No time to scream, just boom. Everything turns white. The hallway erupts behind you in a force that lifts your body, flings it like a doll. Air becomes fire, bricks become blades, and the walls you walked past seconds ago no longer exist. There is no direction, no sense of up or down, just motion and noise and the sensation of your skin pulling away from heat. You land hard, and the silence afterward is somehow worse. You hear nothing for a moment but the thudding of your own heart and the whistle of air being sucked away. You open your eyes. There is no hallway anymore. The New London School is gone. It isn't damaged. It's obliterated. The entire central wing has vanished into a roiling column of smoke and flame. Debris rains down like confetti made of splinters and steel. A textbook, somehow unburned, flutters through the air before slamming to the ground, and the silence is replaced by the thing that stays with you forever, the screaming. You stumble to your feet, blinking through the dust. There's a buzzing in your ears. You taste copper. You turn around and see a crater where classrooms used to be. A pair of shoes lies side by side on the ground, no feet inside them, just shoes, waiting. Some say the blast could be felt 7 miles away. Windows shattered in nearby towns. People thought it was an earthquake, or maybe a freak lightning strike. But those closer knew better. They knew what was missing. Inside that hole were almost 300 students and teachers. Historians still argue over the exact ignition point. Was it the switch flipped in the shop class, a motor sparking to life, or some static charge from the floor tiles? The forensic science of the 1930s was limited. The only certainty is this: a massive buildup of odorless natural gas had pooled beneath the school, and a single spark turned the entire building into a bomb. One blast, that's all it took. You walk toward the gymnasium now, or where it used to be. What's left are twisted I-beams, mangled basketball hoops, and the charred remains of a scoreboard that still reads 14-12. Smoke curls from beneath the wreckage. You hear crying, shouting, then the haunting, rhythmic groans of people digging with their hands. A fringe detail, a black Labrador, was found circling the rubble, barking frantically. No one knew where it came from. Some say it belonged to a student. Others swear it had never been seen before. It refused to leave the site for 3 days. Volunteers arrive almost instantly, parents, neighbors, oil workers from the rigs nearby. Some use crowbars and shovels. Others claw at the wreckage with bare fingers. You see a man lifting a section of beam off a collapsed locker room, hands torn and bleeding. He doesn't stop. He won't stop. Another sensory moment. Smoke fills your lungs, thick and sweet like burnt syrup. It sticks to your clothes, your hair, the roof of your mouth. People are coughing, covering their faces with torn shirts, trying to breathe through the ruin. You pass a teacher's desk, mostly intact. A single red apple sits on it, covered in soot, untouched, and everywhere. Those who survived are wandering, stunned, dazed. One boy, maybe 10, is covered in dust and dried blood. He clutches a wooden ruler like it's a sword. You recognize him. He was in the hallway 5 minutes ago. He keeps repeating the same phrase. "Where's my sister?" You don't answer. You don't know how. The emotional weight here is unbearable. Some parents arrived at the school only to be handed a shoebox containing their child's personal effects. A notebook, a pencil case, a ribbon. They were told, gently, that identification would be difficult, very difficult. Emergency responders set up a makeshift morgue in the gymnasium. Coffins are stacked like crates. Local churches ring their bells. And the town, once drunk on oil wealth, sobers fast. There's no scapegoat yet. No fingers pointed, just sorrow. Somewhere, Superintendent Shaw sits on the back of a pickup, his hands shaking. He says nothing. His face is gray. Later, he'll resign. But in this moment, he's just a father. His own son was in the building. The cleanup will take days. The funerals, weeks. But the psychological scar that one never heals. You stay there, walking through the wreckage, noticing small things, half a chalkboard, the corner of a school banner that reads, "Excellence," a melted trumpet, a sock, quirky historical fact. The explosion led directly to the 1937 federal mandate, requiring that natural gas be odorized with mercaptan, giving it that now familiar rotten egg smell, a change written in ash and agony. As the sun dips low, shadows stretch long across the ruins. You look up at the Texas sky and realize you've stopped breathing. You're waiting for a sound, for a voice, for someone to say this isn't real, but it is. And just when you think it's over, a cry pierces the dusk. They found someone alive, a girl, maybe 12, trapped under a collapsed piano. Her leg is broken, her face is cut, but she's breathing, she's singing. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, they'll begin to ask questions, assign blame, rewrite safety codes. But tonight, all you can do is watch as strangers become heroes, and a town learns how to mourn. You stand now at the edge of a crater that used to be a school. The air is still thick with smoke and grief, but the silence has changed. It's no longer stunned, it's reverent, heavy, the kind that wraps around your shoulders like a too warm blanket you can't shake off. And yet, life begins again in slow, painful movements. You watch as townspeople, faces drawn and hands blistered, work side by side. Some sift rubble for survivors, others for remains. A few just wander, searching for a name, a shoe, a piece of someone they once knew. You don't know whether to join them or stand still. Every movement feels disrespectful. The town of New London, once oil-rich and proud, is suddenly very, very small. You walk into a temporary morgue, now a converted gymnasium, dimly lit and silent, but for the shuffle of feet and the occasional cough. Rows of wooden coffins line the space like pews. Some are open, most are not. Volunteers do what they can, wipe soot from cheeks, straighten torn collars, smooth hair. There are more dead than coffins. Some will be buried 2 to a box. Others, unidentifiable, will be honored as unknowns. In one corner, a little boy's shoes are laid out side by side, carefully cleaned. He never made it out of the science lab. The scent of formaldehyde clings to the air. You taste it as you breathe. Outside, grief morphs into structure. Relief stations are set up. The Red Cross rolls into town. A local church opens its doors to parents too numb to go home. Cots line the aisles. People pray with hands that won't stop trembling. Historians still argue whether the full extent of the death toll was ever known. Official records state 294 dead, but some locals whispered higher numbers: unregistered children, visitors, undocumented workers. The truth, it got lost in the dust cloud. And the superintendent, you find him on the third day, standing in front of a press line, flanked by other grim-faced officials. He speaks like someone whose body is still running, but whose soul clocked out 3 days ago. His words are formal, apologetic, a bit rehearsed, but then, off mic, you hear him mutter, "It was supposed to save us money," because that's the twist. That's the quiet horror tucked beneath this whole catastrophe. The gas line was installed as a cost-saving measure. See, New London was one of the wealthiest school districts in the state, thanks to oil revenues. But they wanted to cut costs, so they tapped into a nearby waste gas line from the oil fields, a raw, unprocessed stream of natural gas. Free fuel, no meters, just an open artery running beneath their feet. But the gas was odorless, untraceable, invisible until it wasn't. A fringe fact at the time. Many towns in Texas were doing the same thing, hooking into these raw lines with minimal oversight. It was common practice, just not common sense. You visit a town meeting next, 3 days after the explosion. The mood is desperate. Residents demand answers. Some call for lawsuits, others for mercy. Most just cry. A mother stands, holding her daughter's lunchbox in both hands like a sacred object. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't have to. A man from the Texas Railroad Commission steps forward. He's flanked by engineers who look like they haven't slept since Tuesday. They bring diagrams, flow charts. One of them sets down a small metal valve on the table with a metallic thunk. It's the one that failed, or didn't exist. Hard to say. The open debate begins to swirl. Who knew what? And when did the school board understand the risks? Were their warnings ignored? One former teacher admits she'd noticed flickering lights for weeks. Another claims she was told to stop complaining. No record of that exists. Of course, you step outside, needing air. It's dusk again. The sky is pink and wide and uncaring. An emotionally immersive moment finds you there, a father walking in slow circles, holding a stuffed bear. He keeps whispering the same name, Abby, over and over. You want to stop him, or hug him, or run, but you do none of those things. You just watch, and it breaks something in you. Down the street, businesses are shuttered, flags are at half-mast. A local radio station plays hymns on repeat. One reporter from out of town sets up near the crater, microphone trembling in hand. He tries to narrate what happened, but breaks down mid-sentence. His broadcast cuts to silence. The town's oil wealth can't fix this. A sensory detail hits you: hard gasoline and scorched wood. They hang in the air, burned into your nose. Every breath reminds you of the blast. Even the rain smells like ash. But here comes the twist of resilience. New London doesn't collapse. Somehow, amid this wreckage, people begin to rebuild not just buildings, but trust. Lawmakers move quickly. By the end of the week, Governor James Allred issues a statement. Then comes the federal response, and the law, it changes. Fast. One by one, states begin requiring that odor be added to natural gas, an artificial scent known as mercaptan, pungent and unmistakable. That rotten egg smell, it was born in the ruins of a school. In a strange, almost poetic irony, the disaster creates one of the most important public safety reforms in U.S. history. Lives lost, but future lives saved. It's not comfort, not really, but it's something. You end your day back at the edge of the crater, now roped off with signs that read, "Danger, unstable ground." The sun has disappeared completely, leaving only the pale shimmer of stars. And just before you turn to leave, you hear a quiet voice behind you. A child, maybe 6, asks his mother, "Why did the school explode?" She answers softly, "Because we didn't smell what was there." You look back once more, but the crater doesn't answer. The days stretch into weeks now, but the silence in New London lingers like an echo. You walk through a town that's both frozen and frantically moving people, rebuilding while still staring at shadows on the pavement where children used to play. You hear the clink of hammers, the low murmur of grief, and every now and then, the sharp exhale of someone remembering something they wish they could forget. But the country, it's wide awake now. Newspapers spread the story like wildfire. Headlines scream across the front pages. School blast kills hundreds. Texas tragedy stuns nation. Could it happen here? You stand at a newsstand in Dallas, 100 miles from New London, and watch strangers shake their heads in disbelief. A boy in a cap reads the headline and asks his dad, "Is that real?" The dad hesitates, then nods. You shift your attention to the radio. It's 1937, and AM airwaves crackle with updates. Broadcasts from New York, Chicago, even London, England. The voice of Walter Winchell delivers the story with grave cadence. He says it may be the worst school disaster in American history. He's right. Soon, New London isn't just a small oil town, it's a symbol. And here's where it gets stranger. A fringe detail bubbles to the surface. One of the earliest known home videos of the aftermath was captured by a local photographer named George Bannerman Dealey. Historians debate whether his reel was censored, lost, or just never shown. Some say the footage was too gruesome. Others say it didn't support the heroic recovery narrative. Either way, the film quietly disappears into archives. It surfaces decades later, grainy and raw, showing bodies being pulled from rubble and volunteers crying into dust-covered hands. You turn away. It's too much. But the investigation that presses forward, the Texas Rangers arrive in boots and dusters, their eyes scanning everyone like they've seen this before, even though they haven't. You follow them into town hall, where ledgers, blueprints, and gas line diagrams are unfurled across long oak tables. Men point at red X's and shake their heads. They ask hard questions. Who signed off on the gas tap? Why wasn't it vented properly? Who knew it wasn't odorized? It becomes clear. Fast the law was behind the times. No federal regulation required natural gas to be detectable. No agency tracked school infrastructure compliance. It was all assumed. The word echoes like an accusation. Historians still argue whether the school board knowingly ignored warnings. Some records suggest complaints were made about headaches and faint smells. Others claim these were just oil field rumors. The line between ignorance and negligence blurs. You attend one of the hearings. A mother testifies. Her voice is like paper thin, but loud in its own way. I don't want revenge, she says. I want a promise. Her hands tremble. No one should have to smell a coffin to know their child is gone. The room falls silent. And then comes the parade of legislation. Within a year, gas companies are legally required to add mercaptan to their product. It's a compound with a smell so foul, so impossible to ignore, that even the smallest leak becomes obvious. It's a revolution in public safety, all because one school became a tomb. You walk the edges of this change. Engineers arrive in hard hats. Schools install new gas meters, alarms, safety valves. New London becomes a warning label, a case study, a line in textbooks under preventable disasters. But even as the laws shift, the grief doesn't. You return to New London and find something odd. In a field not far from the ruins, a memorial begins to take shape. It's not official, just a collection of mementos left by survivors and strangers alike. A math book, a cheerleader's pom-pom, a rusted trumpet. Someone's laid out a row of small white crosses, one for each child they can name. At night, people light candles. You kneel beside one and run your fingers over the wax pooling on the grass. The air smells faintly of oil and earth and something floral roses, maybe planted recently nearby. And in that moment, you understand something. This wasn't just an explosion. It was a fracture in the idea of safety. A moment when progress, the kind that runs silent and invisible beneath our feet, betrayed the people it was supposed to protect. Emotion wraps around you again, this time gentler. You remember the faces you saw, the sounds, the things that survived. A girl's music notebook, pages half burned but still legible. To Rami written in looping penmanship. A teacher's journal that ends mid-sentence. You think about the children who walked into school that morning talking about sandwiches and marbles and spelling tests, not knowing, not smelling, not suspecting. You think about how small choices cheap gas, ignored warnings, old pipes can change everything. A sensory detail brings you back wind brushing through prairie grass, cool against your skin. Somewhere, a barn owl calls. The hum of the oil fields still buzzes faintly in the background, like the land refusing to forget what paid for everything. Then, a man arrives. He's older, maybe in his 60s, and he carries a folded American flag. You recognize him, one of the survivors. His leg still bears the mark of shrapnel, and he walks with a cane, but he moves with purpose. He places the flag beside the crosses and salutes. He doesn't say a word. Soft cliffhanger, you catch a glimpse of blueprints sticking out from under his coat. They look new. You wonder, is he rebuilding something or just carrying the weight of what was lost? You want to ask, but he walks away before you can. The candles flicker in the wind, and you sit there for a long time, wondering how many disasters are hidden in the silence of what we don't know until it's too late. You wake to the sound of church bells, slow, deliberate, morning bells that seem to echo through your ribs instead of your ears. It's Sunday in New London, the first one since the explosion. You step outside and the sky feels too blue, like it doesn't know how to grieve with you. But the townspeople do. They gather in clusters, holding hands, holding breath. Today isn't about lawsuits or laws. It's about names. You walk to the newly built Memorial Park, a modest patch of land where the school once stood. The debris is gone now, the crater filled. In its place stands a stone wall, smooth and pale, inscribed with rows of names. So many names. You run your hand across them slowly, the way one might skim braille, as if the stories will rise off the granite and speak. A mother stands beside you with her daughter, her new daughter. She wasn't born yet when the school exploded. The mother whispers, "That's where your brother's name is." The little girl nods. She doesn't understand, not fully, but someday she will. A mainstream historical fact: President Franklin D. Roosevelt, upon hearing the scale of the tragedy, ordered federal agencies to investigate school infrastructure nationwide. He called the disaster a wound to the conscience of a nation. It was one of the rare times a local catastrophe stirred such sweeping national attention before the age of television. You continue walking. A brass plaque catches your eye. It reads, "Their lives were not in vain," because we remember. But it's what's not on the plaque that nags at you, the question no one quite wants to say aloud. If we remember, why did it happen again? Because here's the twist. This wasn't the last time natural gas would explode in an American school. Not by a long shot. You dig into the records, flipping through clippings and microfiche. And there it is, Cleveland, 1955. A janitor ignites a leak. Louisville, 1967. Faulty piping. Less deadly, yes, but still echoes of the same mistake. Invisible killers under the floorboards. Historians still argue whether the U.S. truly learned its lesson. The Mercaptan regulation stuck, sure, but oversight remained patchy. Some states adopted strict inspection schedules, others didn't. The explosions in New London became a symbol, but not always a deterrent. You visit one of those later schools now abandoned, paint peeling, graffiti across the lockers. It feels haunted. You swear you smell the faintest whiff of gas, though it might just be mildew. You imagine the ghost of that old Texas tragedy watching from the corners, shaking its head. A fringe tidbit for you years later. Conspiracy theories would emerge around the New London disaster. Some claimed it wasn't an accident at all, that the gas tap was tampered with, that someone wanted insurance money, or worse, revenge. These were never proven, but the theories hung around like smoke, feeding late-night whispers and dime store paperbacks. You leave the school and step back into the Texas heat. There's a farmer's market in progress. Oddly enough, kids run between booths selling peaches and homemade soap. Life insists on continuing. You buy a lemonade and sit on a bench where two old men talk about the blast like it happened yesterday. One of them says, "I still remember the sound, like God snapping his fingers." The other just nods. An emotionally immersive moment comes as you listen to a woman play violin beside the memorial wall. She's playing Amazing Grace, but slowly, tenderly, almost like a lullaby. You close your eyes and drift for a moment, the music wrapping around you like gauze. And suddenly, you remember not every student died. Some survived, scattered survivors now in their 70s, 80s, 90s. You track one down, Clara Morrison, age 93, living in a modest assisted living home outside Tyler. She invites you in, offers weak tea and stronger stories. "I was in the hallway when it happened," she says, voice like crinkled paper. "I remember the floor lifting, and then black." She fingers a small photograph, the edges frayed. It's her class picture, 18 faces, smiling. Only 5 survived. "You want to know what's funny?" she asks, eyes glinting. "We all thought the gas smelled sweet, like cake batter." She chuckles. "Turns out death can smell like dessert." You laugh softly, carefully, the kind of laugh you let out when sorrow and absurdity bump elbows. Before you leave, Clara says something that stays with you. "It wasn't just a blast. It was a before and after, my whole life." I've lived in the after. She pauses. "Don't forget the before. That's where the kids lived." You step outside into dusk again. The sky leans lavender. Crickets chirp their eternal background score. And something else begins to stir in your chest. Not just sadness this time, but resolve. The dead aren't warning you because they're bitter. They're warning you because they were caught off guard. You think about modern schools, about electric buses, 3D printed desks, AI tutors, but do they still test the pipes? Do they train teachers what to sniff for? The cliffhanger here is gentle, but persistent if the most dangerous things are the ones we can't smell. How do we teach the next generation to detect what isn't there? You head back toward the memorial one last time. A breeze rustles the leaves overhead, and you swear you hear children laughing, not ghosts, just the memory of recess, the purest sound in the world. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of healing. You're almost at the end now, but endings, like explosions, aren't always clean or complete. They leave residue dust in the lungs, questions in the air. You walk one final loop around New London, the place that changed everything. The trees have grown back, the oil has dried up, the school is gone, but the story, it still hums under the surface, like static from an old radio. Today, you're here for something quieter than a ceremony, a class reunion. Yes, a reunion for a class that never graduated. It's held every year by the surviving siblings of those who died. They gather at the town's community center. There's punch, a scrapbook table, and name tags that say things like Tommy's little sister or class of 38 should have been. You walk in, and the mood is oddly joyful. People laugh, hug, reminisce, but every smile has weight behind it, like joy earned in installments over decades of grief. You spot a familiar face, Clara Morrison, cane in one hand, a slice of sheet cake in the other. Glad you came back, she says. There's something I want to show you. She leads you to a small display table where someone's assembled a replica of the school's science lab. Miniature beakers, Bunsen burners, a chalkboard with faded equations. At first glance, it's charming, but then you realize what it is. It's the room where the gas ignited. Did you know? Clara whispers. They were about to do a chemistry demo when it happened. Someone had their hand on a switch. You imagine it, the tension of 1,000 quiet things about to snap. And suddenly you feel it, not fear, but awe. Awe at how many things have to go right for life to not fall apart. You think of the soft cliffhanger from earlier, the old man with the blueprints. You found out who he was. His name is Reuben Briggs, a retired architect. He's designing a new museum in New London, not about oil, not about tragedy, but about safety. Progress isn't fast, he tells you over coffee. It's stubborn, but it moves when stories stick. And this story has stuck. Oh, how it's stuck. Here's the full circle the laws passed after New London changed more than schools. They led to federal mandates in construction, mining, transportation, even residential codes. Odorization of natural gas became an industry standard, not just in the US, but globally. The ripple went that far. And yet, historians still argue whether the legacy of the blast is one of remembrance or forgetting, because we do forget, don't we, every time we choose budget cuts over building repairs, every time we ignore a gas smell because we're probably imagining it, every time we walk into a place trusting it won't collapse on us. That's not irrational. It's human, but remembering that's also human. And you, listener, you've walked every step of this story. You smelled the oil, felt the heat, heard the bells. You've seen what happens when silence fills with gas instead of words. And you know now it wasn't just a blast. It was a mirror, and we're still staring into it. A sensory-rich image drifts in before we wind down the wind in Texas grass at dusk. The low clink of a candle holder beside a granite wall. The rustle of a child's ribbon tied to a tree. You lean into that quiet now, because it's time to sleep. Let's slow things down. The air is cooler now, and the lights have dimmed. You've traveled far tonight through school halls and courtroom walls, through memories that still rattle in their frames, and you've made it to the other side. The world outside your window is still. Maybe there's a hum from the fridge, or the faint creak of wood cooling for the night. Let those sounds be your anchor. The danger has passed. The story's been told. And as you settle deeper under the covers, remember this tragedy has no schedule. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment to arrive. But compassion change. They're things we can schedule, things we can build. Not fast, not easy, but lasting. You picture the final scene, a rebuilt school with modern detectors and strong foundations. A little girl sitting at a desk where a crater once was, tapping her pencil and glancing toward the window. Sunlight catching in her hair. She doesn't know the story behind the bricks, but she doesn't have to. Because someone did. That someone might be you. So breathe deep now. Let your shoulders sink. The lights of New London are soft behind you. The names are carved in stone. The lessons are etched in air. The story is over. See you tomorrow night. Sweet dreams.